he was quoted in a Fox 9 story regarding the behavior of the SWAT team response that ended up in the death of Amir Locke. And he's kind enough to join us today. You have 30 years police experience and 25 years SWAT experience. Do you continue to believe you saw correct police action on the video you've seen?
Well, Joe, the video is so limited what they've actually released. But based on all my years of doing SWAT search warrants, and I've done hundreds because I've been on that team. I'm in my 26th year being on the SWAT team. And we've done hundreds of no-knock warrants. And I can tell you that if someone's got a gun in their hand and don't drop it, that the officer has the right to defend themselves. And the general public doesn't seem to understand that. We have every right to defend ourselves if people don't follow the orders we give them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's kind of the misunderstanding that we're dealing with here.
What about the nature of no-knock orders themselves? Do you think they should be abolished?
Well, it's funny because I did my research in Wichita, Kansas, because the chief of police down there I went to the FBI Academy with, and he sent me an email telling me that Wichita does not allow no-knock warrants anymore. It comes down to, like I told Babs the other day from Channel 9, I told him, I said, if we're going in on a homicide suspect or a violent criminal who we know has weapons, we need to have that element of surprise. That's why we get the nighttime and the no-knock, so we can go in hopefully at 4 or 5 in the morning. That's when we typically do these, and they're asleep. And then we can get to them before they're awakened up to reach for any kind of weapon, and we can safely secure them.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a need for this. Like I said to Babs the other day, I said, what if I'm going in, we get a search warrant for 3 white supremacists who just killed 4 people, let's say,
mm-hmm.
and they're a white supremacist group. Do I want to knock on their front door when I know that they could have fully automatic weapons that they're going to start shooting at us?
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense to me. There just are times when we need to do it. And the information on this case in Minneapolis was that it was for a homicide suspect. So this is for someone who is already accused of committing a murder.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know the details because they haven't released what that murder was, but I would assume it has something to do with a weapon. So that heightens the sense of executing this search warrant. And there were times that we would not, as a SWAT team, do a search warrant without a no-knock nighttime because it's not justified for a SWAT team. Does that make sense? Because the investigators can do it if they're getting a search warrant for someone who they don't believe is going to be violent or anything like that. They only call our TAC team out when they have information that they're violent or they have violent tendencies or they have weapons. That's when they call a TAC team.
John, help us clear this up. St. Paul issued a warrant, but the Minneapolis Police Department sent it back and said, no, we want a no-knock warrant. So did the Minneapolis Police Department fear more than the St. Paul Police Department might have feared?
Not necessarily. That could be just an administrative decision where the St. Paul Police, and I don't know this, I'm just assuming that they don't allow the no-knocks or it didn't fit the criteria for the no-knock, whereas Minneapolis, it did fit their criteria for the no-knock, and that's why they wanted the no-knock for the SWAT team to do the entry. That's what I would assume.
Yeah, St. Paul has not issued a no-knock since 2016.
Okay, well then that makes sense. They don't write no-knock warrants in their city when they execute them, I guess.
Right. What has been your specialty? You have expanded your career, as I understand it.
Well, I went to St. Mary's University and got a doctorate a couple of years ago. And really got into the research because this problem has been happening my whole career. When I started as a cop, it was Rodney King. Mm-hmm. And we've had all these instances over the last 30 years that I really felt that the next generation of police needed some way to better get along with different cultures in our society. And for those cultures to understand what we do and why we do things and how we do things. So I did a research project on that down in Wichita, Kansas. And it's really kind of ironic because in my research, I took 22 black citizens who did not have any experience in law enforcement and had them run through 6 use of force scenarios using a laser shot system. Mm-hmm. I gave them a gun, a mace, and a taser. and 6 of those scenarios were deadly force was justified, and 6 were not deadly force justified. And all 22 of those citizens were killed at least one time in those scenarios because they didn't pull the trigger or didn't think that it was a deadly force situation. So I have a lot of knowledge base on this topic, when deadly force is justified and not. And if we wait too long as a police officer, then it's us that are going to be the one in harm's way. And we just don't train that way. We don't train to take a bullet before we return a bullet. That's not how we train.
I think the activist community, you don't have to foghorn me, the activist community already has their mind made up.
Well, it's funny you say that, Joe, because ironically enough, I got an email from someone I don't even know, and it's a paragraph long, but it's basically telling me I'm an idiot for what I said the other day, and he starts his email out, maybe we need chaos because it's doing your job considered killing African Americans with no probable cause, then chaos is already here, dumbass. So, and he goes on to basically say that we're killing people without probable cause. And, this is the kind of lack of openness that I'm trying to get through on. I want people to start having conversations, and logical conversations, not just screaming at each other. I offered up to this gentleman to meet him for a cup of coffee. I haven't heard back from him, but I would like to sit down, even though his email is so out of context. Until we start having those conversations, nothing's going to change.
Well, we kicked this around a little bit yesterday. It's difficult to have conversation with one party with his mind made up.
I agree with you, and that's why I published my research in a book, to hopefully some people will read it and they'll actually understand it where they can't have an argument with it. I mean, they could throw the book away or throw it down or rip it up or burn it, but essentially you can't. You can see both sides of the argument, because I took both sides in my research. I had 20 white Wichita police officers experience what it's like to live African American, or experience the things that black people experience that white people just don't understand. So I did both sides of this topic. I want both sides to get along better, because that equates to less people dying and getting hurt.
Do you want to share with us what department you're with, or do you keep that to yourself?
Well, I can't, because I'd violate policy, and then I would be standing tall tomorrow morning, and I don't want to do that, Joe.
Let's not get him in trouble, Joe.
No. Hell, being on this show might get in trouble. I don't know.
Well, no, it shouldn't, because I didn't mention my agency, so I should be fine.
No, you're good. What do you think will come of this? Do you think we're going to have another series of trials for these officers? Are they going to be made an example of?
I sure hope not, because if this one, if Ellison prosecutes on this one, unless they've got something else that I'm unaware of, you're going to see a large amount of police officers hang up their belts and their shirts and their uniforms. They're not going to continue to do this. Let me ask any one with common sense: would you want to put your life, your family's life, in jeopardy if you make a decision based on the way you were trained and how you executed your job, and you ended up in prison? It doesn't make sense. It's not worth. We don't get paid enough money to take on that kind of risk reward.
Well, what you might discover thrown back at you is that the training that is held in suspicion.
I don't. I mean, we've adjusted training over the last 30 years to kind of change with the times. I don't know that the training has been that dramatic of a shift in 30 years that I've been doing this job.
Just off the top of my head, what do you think of the Kim Potter situation?
Oh, that one's hard, and for a number of reasons, Joe. I worked in the Anoka, I shouldn't say that, drug task force, but I did work in that drug task force years ago, and Champlin was a part of that. And not only have I been in multiple areas in the metro, based on 7 years of drug work, I also was in Minneapolis at Ground Zero when that rioting happened. I was at the 5th Precinct. I was at Brooklyn Center when they surrounded that police department. So I've experienced all of these things firsthand, and that one is kind of different, because when I went, I'm not afraid to go talk to people. So I was within the perimeter of Champlin PD, and there was a group of people on the northeast corner just yelling at us, and I walked up to that group and I said, look, I'll talk to you people about this as long as nobody starts shouting. And I talked to them for about 10, 15 minutes until one of them yelled at me, so do you think this was an accident? I said, absolutely it was an accident. She had no intention of pulling her gun. She was saying taser. And the whole crowd erupted, started shouting at me. I said, that's it, and I walked away. You know, it's because nobody wants to have conversations on this. And I absolutely believe Kim Potter's was an accident. That, in my mind, for sure was an accident.
Well, it's just a shame, because it seems that the state really wants to pursue this to its fullest extent, and they're not cutting her any slack whatsoever for believing that it was an accident.
I agree with you. I 100%. I can't say that was an intentional act. That woman had, 25, 26 years of police experience, and I don't think she had any discipline type stuff. She was an ambassador to that city, and for whatever reason, she grabbed the wrong weapon and didn't know it.
Back to Amir Locke, the presenting factor that the entering officers faced to make them determine they were in danger was Amir Locke's hand coming out from the sheets and pillowcases and whatnot, holding the gun. Is that an accurate statement on my part?
From what I saw of that short little clip, yes, that's what I saw.
And what is it that we might not know?
Oh, geez, I like to get all the facts out, before I come to any kind of conclusion. I think we all should, because I think on both sides of this, that little clip is, the narrative is one way in the black community and different in the law enforcement community. And until we get all the facts, I don't think it's fair to jump on and say, this is what it is. You know what I mean? I just don't think that that's a fair way to analyze these kind of use of force incidences. We need to get all the facts, and what those facts are, I don't know. I was not there at that incident, so I can't say firsthand. But there is going to be body cam video of them outside the apartment, whether they announced before they made entry. That will all be on there. There's a lot of things that we just don't know. And then the perspective of the officers. I mean, if that officer feels that he was being threatened by that gun, that's got to be articulated. And if that's articulated, then he's got every right to defend himself.
John, what is your short and long-term outlook on downtown Minneapolis?
Oh, I'll tell you what, I don't go down there.
I don't either.
In society in general, though, it's getting so bad out there. I work the overnight shift, and on overnights, you would be shocked at how many people refuse to stop for the police now, because most police departments will not pursue them. So we have pursuits starting and stopping all night long on all the statewide channels. This is statewide. Just the utter disrespect for law enforcement I've never seen it like this. Years ago, I never carried my gun off duty. Now I don't leave the house without it.
Jeez.
It's a different world out there, and I don't think the everyday citizen sees it because they're not up all night long, or they don't experience what I've experienced in the last 30 years.
Kenny Olson would like to have a question for you. We're speaking with John Pilz, an officer going on his 26th year now.
Well,
John, I can actually...
What, Joe?
Pardon?
I'm in my 31st of regular.
Oh, I'm sorry, 31st year.
Yep.
John, I can confirm what you just said about chases. I just watched a state patrol chase last week where they had the guy pulled over, two guys pulled over in one car, eastbound 94 at gunpoint, and these guys drove off at gunpoint. Yep. And so then a chase ensued, and of course they got him, 30 minutes later. But my question for you is, instead of these no-knock warrants, could you describe the scenario, or how would a knock warrant go? Okay. Because we're all speculating on what that's like, and none of us really know. Just paint a scene for us.
Okay, so if I'm going to go on a regular search warrant, which is knock and announce, I'm going to knock on that door and give it 5 to 10 seconds of yelling from the outside, please search warrant, over and over and over. And usually we do that for about 5 to 10 seconds, usually maybe up to 10 seconds. We give them a chance to come answer the door. We're only going to do that so they do come answer the door and we don't have to ram it. At which point, we do go in and detain everybody and conduct the search. But typically, we're just looking for evidence. We're not looking for people on a warrant like that. Unless the department has changed, and like you said, St. Paul is no longer doing no-knocks. So they have to do it differently, but typically we'll knock and announce for 5 to 10 seconds who we are, and we have a search warrant. Then if nobody answers after that, we'll ram the door, we'll go in and secure everything.
In your career, have you gotten it wrong and have had to back out and apologize?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, we have. We've made mistakes and hit the wrong apartment or hit the wrong townhouse. We've done that. I mean, we've owned that, and that's human error or bad information. The other way that they're doing the warrants now is they're waiting for the suspects to get in their car, and then they'll pull them over on a traffic stop. Once they've got them secure, they'll go back and do the warrant on the house. The problem with that is if that suspect decides to flee, you no longer are going to be chasing him. So he just goes away, and you don't know if he's coming back to where the search warrant is being executed or if he took the evidence with him. So, it works both ways.
So it seems to me in the case of a knock and announce warrant, and if it's a dangerous felon, you're pretty much inviting your own death. Because wouldn't you presume they're going to answer the door or your knock and announce with gunfire?
Well, it's certainly a possibility. I can't say that they're going to do that for sure, but the lack of respect for law enforcement and the fear that the cops are going to shoot back is not like it used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah.
People are more willing to shoot at the cops than ever before. There's just not a fear that a lot's going to happen to them.
Sure.
How many more years are you going to stay out there?
Well, I've been looking for another job since I graduated from college. Part of the problem with I wanted to go into teaching law enforcement at the college level, but part of the problem is there aren't a lot of professor jobs because there's not a lot of people going to school for it anymore. So there's not a lot of turnover in that, or the need for more professors. And you can just go to the college system and see the lack of people going into my field. When I applied for my job back in 1991, I was one of like 400 or 500 applicants. Now we're begging to get a dozen applicants.
What is your long-term concern for police departments in the United States?
That this trend continues. The hatred toward the police continues. The lack of respect. It's an honor to wear that badge and that uniform. And there are some bad cops. I will never deny there's bad cops out there that are wearing that uniform that shouldn't be wearing that uniform. But most of the time we can figure out who they are and get them off the force. But I really feel that going forward we have to build a relationship so people want to become police officers again for the right reasons.
So, John, you lead me to something I wanted to ask you. I have a good friend that just stepped away from the force, and because he's in that same boat. He was just tired of the nonsense. What percentage of police officers do you think are in that same position?
All of them.
To walk away?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. A lot of my guys are going to school or working on second careers that can translate into a different profession altogether. I've had multiple guys tell me that they're going to go back to college and look for something like financing or accounting. In case this continues this trend, they're going to get out of it, and it's sad because
it's terrifying too. It's not just sad; it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's a calling. Good cops are called into this profession. They just are.
I don't doubt that for a moment.
So if we lose that draw, we're all in trouble.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. We thank you, and if it's okay with you, I'd certainly like for us to talk again in the future.
Absolutely. You've got my numbers.
Yep.
I do work the overnight, so leave me a message if I don't answer because I do sleep during the day most days.
What's the name of your book?
Finding Shared Understanding Between African Americans and the Police Through Simulated Experiences.
Is it available on Amazon, for example?
Yeah, it is on Amazon.
All right. And it's John Pilz, Pilz. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You have a great day.
All right,
John.
thank you.
John.
Thank you.
Bye.